Okay, so I just would like to say good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us for our fourth webinar series in our series of 6. This one is called Pest Management in Organic Gardens. Just a brief introduction for myself. My name is Christian Salgado, and I am the UCCE Imperial Community Education Specialist that works on the CDFA UCANR Climate Smart program. And today I'll have joining me today as my co-host, Paul Tavares, and he's a community education supervisor also for the cooperative extension working on the CalFresh program. So just to kind of give a brief introduction, maybe this is your first webinar, maybe you've attended previous ones, but the intent of each webinar is that we are slightly building on the previous webinars. So we hope you're interested in attending all of them. If you are unable to make a webinar, don't worry. We are recording all our webinars and they'll be shared on our cooperative extension website. So they're accessible to you. If you registered, I also email you the link so you can access that as well. Today's presenter is, let me see, do I have any more housekeeping? Oh yes, some housekeeping for us today. If you have any questions or concerns, technical or related to the content of today's presentation, you can put all of that in the chat. In order for us to have a nice clean recording of today's webinar, we force muted all our participants, and the only way to communicate with us is by typing in your questions or concerns in the chat. So Paul will be monitoring that and will let me know. We'll answer all your questions at the end of the webinar. So don't hesitate to type them in at any time, but we won't answer them till the very end. Let's see. So so now to introduce our presenter for today. Our presenter for today is Dr. Oli Bachie. He is our county director. He is also our in-house agronomist. And he'll be sharing with you so much today about pest management in organic gardens. But Dr. Oli, I'm sorry if my introduction wasn't well enough. I'll also let you introduce yourself as well. Thank you for joining us.
All right, good morning, everyone. I hope you all, hear me. Thank you, Kristen. Your introduction is just good enough. It's not about me, it's about the garden. So that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I also thank, Christian and Paul for, organizing, managing, and running, such webinar at this time of difficulty when it is hard for us to get to the client and give them the education that is needed and required from the University of California Cooperative Extension. We believe that such method is very, important and nice to reach people who need to get some education. All right. So I would, like to talk about pest management in, organic gardens. As Christian said, I'm an agronomy advisor, meaning the study of field crops. Well, vegetables are also, grown in the field, but field crops usually deal with, cereals, legumes, the forages and so on. But I have got experiences in pest management and gardening as well. So what I would like to talk, this is a very, very broad area. If we talk about gardens themselves, it is, could be a whole day. And then if you, talk about pest management, forget about the whole types of, pests that eat your crop. It is really very, very broad. In the meantime, if you have any difficulty of understanding me as a result of diversity in accents, please feel free to type any question or any explanation or anything that you would like me to repeat, okay? So I will be talking about, what gardening is, the gardening types, organic gardening, major problems of organic gardens, the nutrition, insects, nematodes, weeds, pathogens, and vertebrate pests. As you can see in this list, you can see there are a lot of issues that we will be covering. So I can't go into the details. I would just simply be covering a highlight to that information. So gardening or horticulture, someone might have given you this information already, an introduction and all this thing by probably Christian. I'm sorry, I didn't, participate on that and didn't know if this was covered. So it may be repetitive. If it is, please forgive me. So when we look at horticulture, the language, the terminology that you have been hearing now and then, which actually, is a Latin word, hortus. Okay, it's two words, hort and then culture. Hortus is meaning garden plant, and the culture, you know this better than I do, means to culture. And that together forms what is called horticulture. So this is, if you look at it classically, it is defined as the culture or the growing of garden plants. That's it. So there are many types of, gardeners. Number one are the conventional gardeners. Those are, they use, conventional fertilizers and synthetic pest controls. So those are very broad. It has been always, the conventional type, but there are also hybrid gardeners, meaning they choose whatever, the conventional and also the natural fertilizer and natural, pest control approach. So it is, a hybrid gardener type. And then there are organic gardeners. Those are simply, gardeners who are only using natural fertilizer and the natural, pest control approach. But, outside of all those, there are those that are the do-nothing gardeners. And those are simply those who do not use fertilizer, they don't use pest control. So by virtue of a chance, they may grow, vegetables or crops. That's it. All right, so let's look at the major problems with, organic gardens, okay? Christian, if you are approaching, my time up or, and then we need time for question, you could, stop me, okay? And then warn me, I can rush through.
Okay, I will.
Okay, so what are crop pests? They are simply, anything that is injurious or that injures your crop or that are unwanted. You don't want them to be, somewhere close to your, crop or vegetables. Those could include insects, mice and other animals, weeds, pathogens, nematodes, vertebrate pests, and many others. When you total all those as a loss because of the damage, it is said that there are about 300 billion or 30 to 40% global food loss because of those pests. So they are not our friends because they interfere with our interests of feeding the society. All right, so what is it? The first approach in pest management is just the same thing. If you have to defend yourselves against any disease, in addition to your, antibiotic and so on, or to boost, your antibiotic, you have to have balanced dieting, right? And the plants are the same thing. They are organisms. They are living, organisms, and they need this. So That is the first approach, proper crop nutrition and the maintaining healthy crop. This is the first defense mechanism that you create for your crops. Because this is not part of a pest management, but a precursor for pest management. I'm not going to go into, the details of, crop nutrition and the maintenance. Okay, so one of the things that looks at, nutrition when you look at, organic is you can make your own, fertilizers from what is called the compost. And instead of throwing those to the, trash bin, you can actually create, as you can see in here, create some kind of a bin, throw it, and put, everything on top of it. So that is free. It conserves water. It cuts down weeds when you do so, and it then keeps food or yard waste out of landfill. So there are many benefits from doing your own compost. And then the crop maintenance deals with proper watering and timing. Don't wait until the crops are wilted, until they are really desperate, and then recovery becomes very difficult for them. We have seen this. People wait until the plants are wilted, and they know that, oh, it is time to give them water. No, 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 no. Monitor. You can monitor the lack of water by just dipping your finger into the pots or into the soil and see if there is some kind of moisture. Even though you may not be accurate in measuring the field capacity or moisture content of the soil, you would be able to see if, your field required, watering or not. So make sure plants are getting enough light and nutrients. If you have got some, potted media sometimes, and you have gardens in there, don't throw them under, a heavy or a dense canopy, tree or other, crops, because we know that plant self-feeding comes from the sun, the water, and whatever they synthesize or assimilate from those combinations. All right, number 2, insect pest management. I'm sure you have seen at least 3 or 4 types of those insect pests in your garden, or at least in somebody's garden, or in the commercial, crop fields. Those are aphids. They look very minor, but they feed maybe 10 times their body size, okay? And then the stink bugs, and then look at those ones, the cabbage loopers. They are called cabbage loopers because of the way they loop when they travel from one place to the other. And then white flies, they are gregarious. If you look at, sometimes you just see dense mat of, white flies. Flea beetles, okay? Those are, types of pests that actually feed on vegetables at early stage. They are not restricted to vegetable. They can damage any crop as well for all of those. All right, so what do we do? How do we control insect pests? I'm sure many of you know already. So this is simply a reminder, or simply, covering what you have already known, some time ago. So one thing, coordinate planting and harvest dates, okay? If you are planting at a time when insect pests are going to be too much in the field, you are actually growing them for your enemy. So make sure that, the right time of planting is desirable. Just do not plant when the plants would not be making use of the environment or the timing or the sun and so on. So they have got specific dates when you have to plant. If you plant, for example, cabbage or broccoli in June, July, Do you think that is the right time? No, it is not. Vegetables in Imperial are usually planted during, fall. Okay, so, and harvest dates are the same thing. Sometimes your crops would actually shatter. Sometimes you will be waiting too long, and then they become vulnerable to, crop pests. And use non-susceptible, cover crops, crop rotation. This is a big topic. My dissertation is on cover crops, actually, meaning, when I studied for a PhD, I worked on cover crops. So what they do is, as the name implies, they are a cover on the ground or a cover against insect pests or other pathogens, because, hey, you are diverting some of the insects that would have attacked your vegetable and let them go feed on those. And those are or can be, cover crops. So plant field borders with crops different from main crops. This is the idea of a pull type of a technology, meaning you divert the attention. You send them to a non-crop surrounding at the border, okay? Sometimes they love, those crops, and in the meantime, you will be harvesting plants that are not attacked by, those insect pests. Maybe for the list of those types of crops and so on, or plants, we need, maybe another webinar to discuss on this, okay? So another one, manage overwintering sites, okay? Sometimes you will see it. Insect pests will be staying in your garden on debris or on something inside the area. So do not let those happen. Collect them and burn, or maybe use them for, compost. So as you can see in here, intercropping also, not only planting around the border, you can mix, your vegetable with other crops. By the way, insects are very smart organisms. They have, all kinds of vision. They have what is called a test feed capacity, meaning they would go around and test the plant whether it is palatable or not. They don't just jump and start feeding on every plant. So if you have got other crops that insect may like and that are placed within your vegetables, then those are good. They actually avoid the buildup of, harmful insects, or sometimes they may have some odor, okay, that is not actually attractable or attractive to the insect pests. So because of the sense of olfactory or sensing odor, they may run away. Some of those could be, marigolds, cowpeas, and so on. Cowpeas can be mixed. They are, number one, legumes. They give fertilizer to your crop, to your vegetable. Number two, when they are matured, you can cut them and incorporate to the soil. Number three, you can actually harvest and feed the, on the legumes, the seeds. Okay, all right. Okay, so there are areas they have seen. Somebody has done research and they looked at how intercropping or polyculturing many crops in one area could actually save plants from flea beetle. Look at this, the monoculture, they planted only collards. There were 34 flea beetles. But when there was polyculture, many plants, there were only 2 flea beetle. So it is a combination of, a look at 2, which is actually a huge reduction by simply, polyculturing or intercropping many crops in one field. And those are really favorable ones, the biological control. You can actually, get those from somewhere and spread in your, garden, or you can actually take the course of natural action and work for the buildup of those biological control. Sometimes, you know, people do not think that ladybirds or ladybugs are beneficial. Sometimes they use, you know, for playing with those. Those beautiful colored, you know, organisms are actually very beneficial. Why? If they have a huge appetite for aphids. Aphids are, you know, insects that have a huge appetite for our vegetables. So those are natural control. There are what are called praying mantids. Maybe sometimes we consider them insects and we spray, you know, household insecticide that are not actually good for beneficial insects such as praying mantids. There are others that you do not know. This one actually looks like a housefly, but it is called a touchweed fly. It's a parasite. So if you have got loopers or any kind of caterpillar, they would just inject in the propose or, you know, the egg depositor into the caterpillar. So it grows into the, you know, the larvae and so on, and finally it kills, you know, those larvae. All right? There are also wasps. So when you see those in your garden, consider them as your collaborators or friends. All right, there are also chemical, you know, control. Some people think organic garden or organic cropping means without insecticide. That is not true. It simply means it is not something where inorganic chemicals are applied. But you can apply organic insecticides. Example, the insecticidal soap, those are available on market. What they do, they are a huge, you know, unsaturated fatty acids made from animal fats. They dissolve the cuticles or the skins of the insects and make them vulnerable to other, you know, organisms. Okay, so products of organic oil with, for example, potassium salt and so on are also good one. Neem tree, I'm sure many of you knew, you know, about this, you know, well-to-do type of, you know, oil, a neem. It is insect growth regulator, meaning it disrupts, you know, those that are feeding on vegetables, particularly the larval stages. Some of them can directly kill, you know, the insects, okay? And those type of insects that can be controlled with neem oil are aphids, beetles, leaf miners, caterpillars, leafhopper, and white flies. All right, so are we okay so far? If there is anyone having any trouble, please put something on the chat line, okay? Christian, are we okay?
We are at 10:26, just to be on, this presentation was going to go till 10:30. I hope our guests could spend at least an extra 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh, we didn't start at 10 though.
We didn't. That's what I'm saying. If our guests can spend an extra 10 or 15 minutes with us.
Okay.
And I have questions that I've been writing down. So I definitely think we'll have a good conversation after your presentation, Oli.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much. So the other ones are parasitic nematodes. Those are actually microscopic organisms. They are neither insect nor pathogens. They are nema in the animal classification, okay? Those have recycles. They can go into the roots of the plant, as you can see in here, get into, and then they lay eggs on the surface of the roots. They hatch, and they produce what are called larvae, and there are different stages, and the larvae goes back into the plant and keeps the recycling. This is actually the larvae that has got a very good appetite and feeding on the plant. Those are what are called the root knot nematodes or the Melodogyne species, okay? All right. There are actually many types of nematodes, okay, on different types. And how do we manage, nematodes? One, the first thing is take soil sampling. If there are patches in the field that are affected, and that is because nematodes are really not having a good mobility, and therefore their effects are actually very patchy. You can actually see on the lawn, on grasses sometimes, some part of the lawn is affected, the grass is drying, and so on. And if you just collect the soil and send it for nematode, analysis, they can tell you if the soil is, full of nematodes or free from nematodes. Host plant resistance and tolerance. The good thing, not all nematodes can actually affect all types of crops. But still then, which crops are resistant and which crops are not is an issue that needs to be discussed at some time. Use of cover cropping. There are two types that I worked on. Marigold and cowpeas are actually known to have nematicidal effects. Okay, so you can plant them intercrop, or when they are matured, you can actually chop and incorporate into your garden area. Okay, all right, nematicides. Okay, look at this. Neem oil is not only insecticidal, but it is also nematicidal. Okay, those can be used. Okay, fourth, weed management. I'm sure we all know what weeds are. They look like your plants, but they are not actually your friend, okay? Except if they are also edible. But most weeds are not edible, okay? What do? They compete against your plant. You don't see them choke your plant. You don't see them, feed on the plant. What they do, they compete through the roots for nutrient. They compete through the canopy for light, and that is what they are doing. They are actually not different from insect pests, pathogens, or nematodes in actually, reducing the yield of your crop. So anything that is out of place, unwanted, is a weed in your garden. It is competitive and aggressive. That's what their behavior. Persistent and resistant to control. Okay, so sometimes people call them useless, unwanted, undesirable, and all kinds of names. So they usually appear without, sowing. You did not plant them, but they are everywhere. All right, so some of them, broadleaved types, okay? So are, of course, different types as you can see in here. And then, this, portulaca, or what is called common parsley. I wish this becomes, a kind of a salad plant. I think it should be very delicious. It's eaten somewhere. This is very tolerant to environment. It grows in summer, winter, spring, and so on. So it could make to a very good, food source if we learn how to use it. Okay, so those ones also spotted spinach, and then malva. This is one of the worst one. You saw it everywhere, actually, and those are many of them tolerant to solarization and also herbicides. And then dandelions, sow-thistle, okay, amaranthus, and then of course the grass types that are wild oats, and then the crabgrass or digitaria species, okay? Those are actually very bad types of weeds. What can you do? Prevent, use clean seeds. Don't let plants come with weed seeds. Cultural control, crop rotation, alter planting dates when weeds are not strong. Mechanical weed control, tillage, mowing. This is probably what you have been doing. Hand and the mechanical weed control, hoeing and pulling, and then mulching. You're actually something that covers the weeds from coming through. Okay, this is something that they could use as inter-row, cover cropping. the polyculture, or anything of a crop residue that can be used between your garden rows to avoid weeds from emerging. There are many organic, herbicides as well. You can find, in Home Depot, herbicidal soap, acetic, I'm using this very much, a vinegar-based, so you can see the prescription. 1 teaspoon of, 1 gallon of vinegar with 1 teaspoon of soap and salt. That's all I have been using to control and directly spraying on weeds, okay? So there are, contact, but they are non-selective. They can kill anything. Pathogens or disease. You can see those, many of them, okay? They can be fungi, bacteria, viruses, or any other. You can see it. Black spot, bacterial wilt, black spot. Sometimes you don't even differentiate because you can see them, but they are some kind of spots that appear on your plant. If they are not normal appearances, there could be those. You can send samples somewhere and find out what type of pathogen is actually affecting your garden. So, number one, you can control this by having disease-free transplants. Sometimes plants are affected. You're bringing them to your garden, and it can be transmitted to other, crops as well. Crop rotation, it works because we know not all diseases affect all crops. Sanitation, destroy infected plants, burn them, or bury them in the soil. Okay, mulching is also a good one for this. If there are fungal spores, and then if you are splashing water, they can actually be dispersed into your vegetable garden. So if you are using mulching, those cannot be splashed onto you. There are organic, fungicides. There are many types, and one of those are the bacillus type. Those are, bacterial. You have heard about those. Sulfur, you can spray those. There are, broad spectrum sulfur-based, herbicides. All right, we're coming to the last types of, enemies, the vertebrate pests. They really look very beautiful, okay? But hey, we don't like them. We don't like them to eat our crop. We can feed them somewhere else, okay? So birds, you have seen them, okay? The red-winged blackbirds, those are actually the ones that did not let my sorghum survive at the research station. The crows, they are very, strong, particularly to pick up fruits and so on. Gophers, you have seen them. Those are, really, really, very bad. They dig, areas, and then they come in the night, in the day, and so on. And then, of course, the cats attacking gophers, the voles, okay, or meadow mice, squirrels, rabbits, and so on. All right, so how do we control birds? Hey, use guns. Those are not really, active shooting guns. They are simply made for, birds with pellets. If you have got a large area, you can actually, use those to scare birds. And then we have something like this, cover, the heads of the plant if they are producing, flower heads and so on. And the repellents, there are some, you can spray and they don't feed, on the plants. All right, sanitation, crop rotation, gophers. Probably, if you have got the mounds or tunnels around your, vegetable garden or on your backyard, you can actually notice those are made by those types of gophers, okay? They are very smart. They know how to hide from the enemies. You don't actually see them. They can sense, motions, so they run away. So those are, the type. So how do we manage, gophers? There are poisons that are not actually poisonous to other animals or others, specifically made for those. You can put, those are, they love peanuts. So they mix with peanuts and give it to them. or apply into the holes. And then there are repellents, unpleasant or unpalatable foods. Look at this plant, marigold, rosemary, or allium, or onion or garlic based, castor oil, coffee grounds, peppermint oil. Gophers don't like anything that burns their, their nose or their mouths, okay? So you can use those and apply around the plants or on the plants. And then something that creates sound or a wave, live traps. And this one is actually something that you would need to place around, the moons or the tunnels. And then it is a trap and then release type. Take it somewhere and say, hey, not in my backyard. Go wherever you like to type, okay? So you can use also wire mesh. They dig, around the vegetable. Because tunnels are usually about 2 feet deep, you have to dig that deep to put the wires into, the garden area. So if you are serious about gardening, you may consider to use that. Flooding tunnels, just let water into and suffocate. Rabbits, I'm sure you know all that those have got good history for children, okay? But when it comes to your crop, they are actually huge terrorists, okay? They can come, they can attack your crop, and they are not really friendly type. And they are also very smart. They run fast. They can spot that you are coming to them. They know how to hide from the predators, okay? So the best you do is exclude them. You can use some kind of a mesh that is about 1 inch, because, hey, they know how to squeeze themselves and go through. They are just like any other, mouse and so on. Limiting hiding places, because they are very active to look for themselves, defend themselves against predators. They look for a hiding place. So make sure they don't have those places. Repel them, okay? Releasing some kind of scent, garlic oil, hot pepper chases them out. Use rabbit-resistant plants, okay? Herbs, onions, and then encourage predators. Owls and hawks, they really hate them. And they are also very much, prepared on how to, attack them. So if you have got dogs, those are very good, to give them a scare, okay? And they can chase them. All right, so squirrels. All right, so excluding them, tight-fitting trash cans, because they love anything trash. They play with it, and in the meantime, they make your garden a playground, okay? Tight-fitting trash cans, give them a scare, repel them, use plants, encourage predators. Okay, those are what we have to discuss. So in summary, I'm sure I'm, at my time, good timing, and I will not be fighting with, Christian. All right, so
okay.
You garden smart, okay? That is the best thing. Healthy, productive plant. Use natural defense system to resist environmental stress and the pests. Feed the soil, and it will feed your plants and make them healthy and tolerant to your, the enemies of the crop. Follow organic rules if you have to use, make your, garden organic. And of course, you have to be patient, because organic food production does not mean using a silver bullet to kill all. It does allow some kind of, pests to some threshold, okay? So be patient with them. Just because you saw, one insect or anything, do not panic, okay? That's what we have to do. You can actually collect those or kill them or throw them out of your garden. And if you have to be strictly organic, use permitted and available garden chemicals when necessary, okay? And then, of course, seek for ongoing knowledge regarding, gardening issues. Those would be, beneficial to you. I think it is not a one-day education. We cannot really give you all you want at one time. And this is something that we are going to do, on an ongoing basis. I'm glad, to inform you that we are going to have a vegetable advisor sometime soon, and possibly have a master gardener for Imperial County for the first time. If we have those on board, I believe you gardeners would actually have a favor and a support from the cooperative extension and other institutions. Okay, all right. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I would be very happy to answer any question.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Oli, for that presentation.